just think that there's like one big overarching thing. Like one big supreme thing. Like, I don't know if it's like one God or if it's like multiple things, but I just kind of think that there's something else out there.
I was raised ELCA, Lutheran, which I think is what Augustana is affiliated as. My dad is an ELCA Lutheran pastor.
Let's see. Well, I believe in karma. It's not so much as a religious being. I believe if you do something wrong will happen to you. Treat others as you want to be treated, so if you treat people nice, you won't live a bad life. And I have not fully decided yet whether or not I believe in the fact that there's somewhere we go after we die. I feel like I want to believe it, just so I feel like there's not just the darkness.
It's really complicated, I guess. I don't really know. My family is Christian, I guess you could say, but I've always had like questions and stuff, and that really didn't float with my dad's side of the family. From anything to like what music I listened to what, like, I don't know, if I got a piercing, it was against God, it was evil, and like I was going to hell.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that was kind of like a put off, and I already had like questions. I'm like, why is Christianity the answer? Why can't like Buddhism or Islam be like the correct answer? Like why does there have to be a correct answer? Mm-hmm. Like everybody has their beliefs. How am I supposed to believe that I was just lucky enough to like be born in the correct religion?
I'm sick, and I grew up being sick through family values. I was just always raised that way.
I am a Roman Catholic. I have been all my life. Both my parents were, and I was brought up that way. Yeah, I can remember going to church at a really early age, so it's been all my life.
I would say I'm Catholic. My family's Catholic, and I was baptized as a Roman Catholic. But I wouldn't necessarily say that I believe in all the dogma of the church. But for lack of a better definition, I'm going to go with Roman Catholic.
Well, I went to Catholic school, but as I came to the U.S., I guess, I started to learn, you start seeing all these people and what you learned in the Catholic school, and like thinking about what you've learned. And then I'm not like as strict as before. I think I'm almost considered not Catholic.
I grew up in a family that didn't specifically say what religion you need to be, I guess. My father doesn't believe, and my mother didn't really stress anything. And then when I lived with my grandparents, they didn't either. They were just like, hey, let's go to church sometimes.
I don't really have religious beliefs, so you can kind of say that I'm an atheist. But that's more because my parents didn't raise me like religious, and nobody in my family is really religious.
Oh, I like this question. I would say that I am a moderate liberal.
I'm liberal. I'm fairly liberal.
Okay.
Politically, I would say that I'm a Republican and a fairly conservative one.
Okay, well, I think I'm pretty liberal.
Like, I don't really 100% believe in everything that like Republicans say and 100% believe that Democrats say. Like, I'm kind of more in between, with just like Democrats have a few more points that I completely agree with.
I am not very politically active. That's not really something that has come across to me. I did vote, and I voted because I did have an opinion.
Well, that's kind of different because the standards politically are different between Holland and the United States, because if you say Obama here is left, but in Holland that would be a liberal right, because we are more socialist, and like in general the country is more a socialist country. So you have the left part that's like real socialism, and then the right part is more like liberalism. We have extreme rights, but that's extreme right is not more. We have conservative parties, but they are really small, so that would come close to Republicans here. And we have extreme right, that's more people who want to get rid of all the foreigners and all the immigrants. And then you have just like center-right liberal, and I would go for that. So for center-right liberal.
Yeah, just have people run independently and just eliminate. I mean, I understand that, you know, the system that we have set up, but I don't think you should vote for one person just because, oh, you know, I'm a Republican, so I'm going to vote for this guy. I think you should make your decision after researching so that you understand everything.
I'm into science. I know I need to learn that though. Learn some politics.
Politically, I never really decided. Like in high school, we read about like which each political party in the U.S. was, like Democrat, Republican. I never really fit specifically into one category. There were just more of one I agreed with and less. So.
No, not at all.
No.
I think the way it is now is pretty good in the sense, like, I know a voting system isn't perfect. I think it's impossible to have a perfect voting system though. So, like, the way we have it is that people's personal beliefs, the people that emulate people's personal beliefs are the ones that get elected to offices and enact laws and direct the country. And I think when people vote, they should keep their religion in mind, especially the aspects of the religion that tell them what's right and what's wrong, and vote for the people who tend to believe the same things about what's right and what's wrong. And in that way, I think that religion does a better job of picking politicians.
Well, I never met a Muslim person until we were in honors.
I don't think I've really come into contact with it. I mean, we're in the Midwest. We don't really get out much.
I've come into contact with the Islamic faith many different ways, actually. My family's from Punjab, which is a northwestern state of India, and that is bordering Pakistan. So there's a lot of Muslim people there, and there's a large Muslim community, obviously in India and in the Chicagoland area as well, which is where I'm from.
Other than my Muslim friends, I had a couple back at school, but I'm from a suburb of Chicago. We're not very diverse. And I know a couple of Muslim people at Augustana. Other than that, about 4 years ago, I read a translation of the Quran, and I know some Arabic. I also have read some things about Islam, not extensively, and I don't say that I would have a firm understanding of their religion. I would be interested to learn more.
What prompted you to do that?
I was being a smartass. I had to read a nonfiction book for my high school freshman year, English class. So I grabbed the Quran from the reference section, and I really wanted my teacher to say, "You can't read that, that's fiction." But she said, looking at this 500-page book, and everybody's picking out, these little autobiographies, she was like, "Yeah, Aubrey, you can read that book." So it wasn't necessarily like I was super enlightened, this wonderful student who just wanted to learn about other religions. It was because I was being funny. But then I read it, and I actually learned a lot, and it prompted me to read other books. I read things by Osho. I tried to read the Bible, and it's sad that I couldn't get through that because that's where I say my religion is based off of. But
just some of the things you hear and just some of the different beliefs they have are just very interesting, very different, but also a lot of the things they believe are very, I don't know, I like their belief sets of what
I've
I've
always just
heard
had
of
a
them.
positive view of it. It's just it's a religion. Religion isn't supposed to promote violence.
I would have to say that I believe their religion is inferior and to mine, but I don't think it makes the people who believe it any less of a person or any less of a moral person.
Well, you don't exactly see a whole lot of news about the Great Community Service Project, your local mosque, like, participated in. There's not a whole lot out there about Islamic, like the good bits. You only ever hear the bad bits.
Okay. Well, I think all the media is biased.
I think our society was definitely trying to backlash against this anti-Muslim idea, kind of realizing that they're being not oppressed, but stereotyped in a negative way. And I think we were starting to put them back on equal level, and this could be a setback to some people who are like, we should treat them the same, but yeah, they keep doing all this stuff, and just in the whole political conversation about it, it's a step back.
Islam.
Not my opinions personally, but I do feel like the media has a large effect of what the U.S. citizens or anyone in particular thinks about a specific culture.
Yeah.
9/11, after 9/11 happened, the day after 9/11 happened, I remember this, there was a man who was a Sikh. He wasn't Muslim, and Sikh or Muslim, not everyone's going to be a terrorist. So someone saw a man, I think it was in Arizona, and he was wearing a turban and he was Sikh. And this man in Arizona shot him at a gas station because he just assumed because he had a turban he was a terrorist. And so when people, I've had encounters with this, a lot of members of my family who have turbans, they've had, some discrimination, but people have always called them Muslims. So the first thing that we need to explain is that, there's a difference between Islam and Sikhism. But then the other thing is that not everyone who practices Islam is going to be a terrorist. So
I've never traveled before 9/11, so I don't know, but whenever I'm in any U.S. airport or any airport anywhere in the world, I'm always the only one to be taken into further investigation just because the way I look or because my passport said I'm Palestinian. So
it must be exhausting.
Yeah, I almost missed my flight so many times just because of that. Because they took me to investigate, and I spent hours when I'm really tired. I just want to go sit, but I have to go through all that.
Yeah.
I think it's always good to know a little bit background information, but I don't think that the religious beliefs will always be the derivative of what they did. I think there's definitely something that there's a fine line between having religious beliefs to motivate something, and there's another thing to say that you have your own personal values and motives. But you can say that your religious beliefs have added towards that value. I feel like it really it differs from each person.
I think it's kind of is, but it should not be because it can explain why people did it. So with 9/11, it was clear that it was a direct attack on the United States, but that's also part politically. The attacks are probably also politically and religious, but I think you should always keep in mind the religious part because it can explain a lot why the attack happened, but it should not go directly as an attack on the religion itself because it's about what one person, how he interprets the religion that he follows and how he interprets it, and not directly how a whole society or a whole religious movement interprets it. So it should go about the the personal connection with the religion and not with the religion in general.
Right, so in terms of this project, I felt that the most interesting thing that I found about interviewing all of the people that I talked to was that they all seem to have a generally sort of liberal perspective in terms of how politics and religion should relate to one another. Even with the more conservative people that I talked to, they still had this idea that there should be an inclusive aspect to society that didn't discriminate against any religion, regardless of their personal religious beliefs. They still acknowledge the fact that there should be a separation between church and state, and that the separations and the personal beliefs of others should be recognized and respected. And I kind of wondered if that was something that was the product of just being like a young idealist, or if it was something that they actually learned was sort of a fundamental value that everyone could agree upon. And I thought that was interesting in terms of kind of where I come from too, because I always thought, coming from the same perspective where I feel like everyone's belief should be respected, I thought that that was just kind of a product of my own upbringing, because my parents were definitely very open and understanding when it came to religion. Even my mom, who was and still is very straightforward in her faith and very faithful in the Christian religion, still had a complete openness towards other religions and was incredibly supportive of interreligious dialogue, and was even a part of it for much of her career as a Presbyterian minister, Presbyterian UCC minister. And so for me, I thought that this was just a product of my upbringing for me to be so open towards other religions, but it seems that other people also believe we can cooperate. And I thought it was interesting too how Vera, coming from an area, she was the Palestinian student who I interviewed, coming from an area where there is sort of a less of a separation between church and state. For her to still believe that there should be that separation and that secularism was really interesting for me. Not that I necessarily didn't expect it from her, but I thought it was a good perspective. And I was really glad that I interviewed her and was able to talk to her about it. And I also appreciated the variety of responses I got to the religion question, because there were some people who believed that what they thought was where they were going with life, such as Luke. I've talked to him privately, and he's, confessed to me that one of his goals in life is to become a better Christian. Whereas other people I talked to, like Pope, had a very open interpretation of religion and kind of a pessimistic attitude towards it. Maybe not pessimistic, but negative attitudes toward religion. And, her idea was kind of leave it be, everyone's right, who's to know what the truth is. And then there were other people like Aubrey in between who identified themselves as Catholic, but also identified the fact that they didn't know how faithful they actually were, but decided that they were going to raise their family as Catholic as well, just to keep up the tradition that was already kind of sustained in their family and continue the sense of community that she really valued in her own faith tradition. And I thought that that was really interesting too. So, coming from a wide variety of perspectives, I thought that this was a really beneficial process because it helped to open my own mind, and it also helped me kind of understand more where I stand personally in respect to my peers, and it also opened up the platform for me to talk to them about how I felt about these things too, which I think is a really valuable experience.
So this project, firstly, it ended up being a lot more than I thought it was going to be, because at first it was just kind of like, oh, this is going to be really cool, we're going to get all these opinions. And I was kind of surprised. I guess I shouldn't have been surprised, because obviously everybody on this campus has something in common in that they chose it for a reason and that we all have similar values in that sense. But it was surprising to me to see how many people felt very similar ways, even though they expressed it through a different set of belief systems. It was just really interesting for me to see both people who identified as conservative and liberal and people who identified as all sorts of religions to all kind of say, yeah, no, everybody should be, everybody's faith is important. I don't know why I didn't expect that, but I didn't. So it was really cool to see. Also just, like you said, having that platform open now with so many people, and finding so many people open to talking about their own faith, it was really exciting, and I think kind of demonstrated that it's not hard to start an interfaith dialogue. Like, it's not hard to just sit down with somebody and be like, hey, let's talk about this. Like, just because it's a taboo doesn't mean that it's difficult. Like, especially if it's just as simple as being like, hey, can I tape you and ask you a bunch of uncomfortable personal questions? And people are just like, sure, why not? Was really surprising to me. Also, for me personally, what was really interesting was, especially in going back, how many hundreds of times we went back and watched people tell us their responses, and just watching the little nuances in their face, and the people who were uncomfortable with sharing their opinions versus the people who were comfortable and confident, really, like, beyond showing the difference between those who were cemented in their faith and those who were still searching, it just really showed, like, the struggles that do come with talking about these kinds of issues, and it's just really cool to see it, like, laid out in front of you. Okay, I'm just gonna stay off in the space.
Okay.
I don't know what else to say.
This is kind of off topic, but like, I work at Hy-Vee, and there was a guy that came in who comes in there, he just sits down and like does research, and he found out that I was in this religion class, and then he started talking to me about how all previous religions were just the devil in disguise, and that the religions were created by aliens who came down thousands of years ago and are still living among us. Like, he seriously believed this, but
Okay. How do you...
I just say, I love Jesus. There's like...
I'm recording you.
I was always going to Temple Church, and
So I feel like I have a good understanding of what happened immediately after the massacre, at least what CNN and the New York Times reported. Boston Massacre, whoa, different, I applied the wrong word.
Okay.
What was the question?
I'm just taping this. It's kind of funny.
Dr. Martin, so good. This is for you.
Yeah.
That's all?
Okay.
All right. Thanks for your time.
Cool.